Welcome to our college briefing show. Today, we're diving into a story that highlights the challenges faced by Chinese students in the US, where even valid paperwork isn't enough to prevent hours of questioning and deportation, all amidst shifting policies and diplomatic tensions. It's a reminder of how international education is navigating a complex political landscape. Next, we explore Hong Kong's vibrant multicultural scene, emphasizing the importance of genuine community integration beyond just surface-level gestures. From multicultural spaces to the unifying power of music, the city's efforts to foster social cohesion show how diversity can be a source of strength and unity. Finally, we turn our attention to UK forests, which are now fighting a tiny yet destructive invader, the eight-toothed beetle. Authorities are deploying cutting-edge technology like drones and AI to protect these precious woodlands, but climate change poses an ongoing threat, making this a critical battle for the future of Britain's natural landscapes. Please continue to watch for more detailed stories. The Toronto Star vividly recounts the harrowing experience of Gu, a 22-year-old Chinese philosophy student bound for the University of Houston, whose journey was abruptly derailed at a Texas airport. Despite having all the proper paperwork, a full scholarship, and a history of trouble-free exchanges at Cornell, Gu was subjected to hours of interrogation, questioned about his political affiliations and connections to Chinese institutions, before being deported back to China. His story underscores the unpredictable and often harsh policies faced by Chinese students amid shifting U.S. attitudes, as the Trump administration oscillates between welcoming and scrutinizing Chinese scholars, especially those involved with advanced technologies like AI and quantum computing. The Chinese embassy condemns these actions as discriminatory and politically motivated, highlighting the physical and mental toll inflicted on students caught in the crossfire of international tensions. The South China Morning Post offers a heartfelt perspective on Hong Kong's multicultural fabric, emphasizing that true integration extends beyond formal programs into everyday interactions. The article advocates for supporting organic, community-driven exchanges, such as street fairs, cooking workshops, and multicultural storytelling sessions, that foster genuine understanding and cohesion among diverse populations. It calls for practical measures like multilingual signage and systemic reforms in housing and employment to address persistent inequalities. Schools and community centers are seen as vital catalysts for nurturing empathy and inclusiveness from a young age, with the goal of creating a city where every resident feels valued and empowered. Ultimately, the piece stresses that societal harmony depends on individual initiative, encouraging residents to learn about their neighbors, support minority-owned businesses, and participate actively in building an inclusive Hong Kong. The Sydney Morning Herald reflects on Brisbane's rich educational heritage, tracing the origins of its schools back to 1875 when primary education became compulsory in Queensland. The article celebrates the city's historic institutions like Brisbane Central State School, West End State School, and Kelvin Grove State School, which have stood the test of time, preserving their heritage and adapting to modern needs. These schools symbolize Brisbane's commitment to inclusive education, with initiatives like the First Girls Grammar School and multicultural programs fostering diversity. The narrative also highlights the evolution of secondary education, from humble beginnings to widespread access, and the importance of tradition and community spirit in shaping these institutions. Through stories of iconic landmarks, such as the old fig tree at West End, and historical figures like Sir Charles Lilly, the article paints a picture of a city deeply rooted in its educational legacy, continuously evolving while honoring its past. The Globe and Mail reports a troubling incident involving two firefighters in Washington who were detained by ICE while responding to the Bear Gulch wildfire. Despite their crucial role in fighting the fire that threatened thousands of acres of forest, these workers, contracted to assist in wildfire management, were unlawfully detained due to their immigration status. U.S. Representative Emily Randall expressed her concern over the unprecedented coordination between the Bureau of Land Management and Border Patrol, which she found troubling given the ongoing firefighting efforts. The incident highlights the complex intersection of immigration enforcement and emergency response, with some officials defending the arrests as unrelated to firefighting activities, while critics argue that such actions undermine public trust and hinder vital disaster response efforts. BBC details the UK government's battle against the invasive Ips typographus, a tiny but devastating bark beetle threatening the nation's forests. This pest, smaller than a fingernail, has already ravaged European spruce populations, causing destruction on a massive scale. Despite efforts to prevent its entry through port inspections, the beetles are being carried across the English Channel by the wind, making eradication a formidable challenge. UK scientists have employed innovative techniques such as drones, sniffer dogs, and real-time camera traps to detect and combat the infestation. Their success in eliminating the beetle from at-risk areas demonstrates a proactive approach, but climate change poses an ongoing threat by increasing the beetle's population and dispersal, emphasizing the importance of continued vigilance and adaptive strategies to protect the country's forests. The Independent highlights a startling discovery regarding the use of beta blockers, a common medication prescribed after heart attacks. New research reveals that these drugs may be ineffective for women with mild heart damage and could even be harmful, increasing the risk of subsequent heart attacks, hospitalizations, and death. The study, published in the European Heart Journal, found that women treated with high doses of beta blockers were nearly 3 times more likely to die than those who did not receive the medication, especially among women with preserved heart function. Experts suggest that gender differences in heart size and physiology may explain the disparate effects, underscoring the need for personalized treatment approaches. This revelation challenges long-standing medical practices and highlights the importance of gender-specific research in cardiovascular care. The South China Morning Post vividly illustrates the potential for individuals to cultivate happiness through intentional mental practices. Laurie Santos, a Yale psychology professor, emphasizes that happiness is not solely determined by external circumstances but can be trained through scientifically backed techniques such as gratitude, mindfulness, and social connection. Santos highlights the concept of hedonic adaptation, where our happiness diminishes as we get used to positive changes, urging us to focus on micro-moments of joy and gratitude to rewire our minds. Her courses, including Psychology and the Good Life, demonstrate that small, consistent actions, like recognizing blessings or savoring daily delights, can incrementally boost overall well-being, even amid hardship. Santos's approach underscores that happiness is a skill we can develop, requiring effort and persistence, and that fostering relationships and appreciating life's simple pleasures are powerful tools to counteract our natural negativity bias. The Globe and Mail reports on Australia's controversial move to deport former detainees without valid visas to Nauru, a tiny island nation, in a deal that involves significant financial commitments. This agreement, which includes an upfront payment of $408 million Australian dollars and annual resettlement funds, aims to facilitate the removal of individuals who cannot legally stay in Australia. Critics, including refugee advocates and human rights organizations, condemn the deal as discriminatory and potentially dangerous, citing reports of systematic violations of international torture conventions in Nauru. The policy reflects Australia's ongoing efforts to tighten immigration controls, especially following a High Court ruling that ended indefinite detention for some migrants. However, opponents argue that such measures undermine human rights and dignity, highlighting the deep divisions over how best to manage immigration and refugee issues in the country. Australian Broadcasting Corporation details the devastating Hillcrest tragedy, where a dust devil swept across a primary school in Tasmania, lifting a jumping castle filled with children and tragically causing multiple deaths and injuries. The incident prompted swift bans on jumping castles across Tasmania's public schools and other jurisdictions, drastically impacting small operators like Russ Jackson, whose business ceased operations after the event. Court proceedings revealed complexities surrounding safety standards, with expert witnesses debating the adequacy and clarity of Australian standards for amusement devices. Families of the victims are calling for legislative reforms and clearer regulations to prevent future tragedies, while operators mourn the loss of a once popular form of children's entertainment. The incident has left a lasting scar on the community, sparking ongoing discussions about safety, regulation, and the balance between enjoyment and risk. The BBC reports a disturbing case involving the illegal trade of human body parts in the United States, revealing a dark underbelly of the for-profit industry that exploits grief and commodifies human remains. Harold Dillard's story exemplifies the potential horrors lurking behind seemingly altruistic donations, as his family was devastated to discover his body was dismembered and mishandled by a now-defunct company called BioCare. This case sheds light on a broader industry of private body brokers who acquire, dissect, and sell human tissues, often with little regulation, fueling a global trade that supplies medical research and training centers worldwide. The lack of strict laws in the US compared to Europe has allowed this industry to flourish, with some companies earning millions while others face accusations of disrespecting the dead and exploiting vulnerable families in grief. The debate centers on ethical concerns and the need for tighter regulation, as well as discussions about the future of medical training, with virtual reality emerging as a promising alternative to cadaver use. The BBC also highlights the ongoing issues with school attendance in England, emphasizing how the first week of the academic year is critical in setting the tone for student engagement throughout the year. Data shows a worrying trend. Students who missed the initial days of school were far more likely to become persistently absent, which can severely affect their educational outcomes. Despite improvements since the pandemic, attendance remains a significant concern, with many children missing school due to medical treatments abroad or unauthorized holidays. Education officials stress the importance of early intervention and parental cooperation, deploying support hubs and incentives to encourage regular attendance. However, critics argue that more comprehensive strategies are needed to address underlying issues like mental health and social inequality, which continue to threaten the educational prospects of a new generation. Meanwhile, the Globe and Mail reports a tragic double homicide in Sudbury, Ontario, where police are actively seeking additional suspects following the shooting that claimed the lives of a man and woman. The incident, which occurred on Paris Street, appears to involve individuals known to the victims, and authorities have detained a 44-year-old suspect while investigating the possibility of other involved parties fleeing the scene. Police reassure the public that there is no ongoing threat to safety, but the case underscores the persistent violence affecting communities across Canada. The investigation continues as authorities work to identify all suspects involved, seeking justice for the victims and ensuring community safety. The South China Morning Post highlights Hong Kong's strategic move to elevate its scientific research capabilities through the designation of 15 state key laboratories, a significant institutional overhaul initiated in 2023. These labs, primarily managed by leading universities such as the University of Hong Kong, Chinese University, and Hong Kong University of Science and Technology, are poised to forge stronger collaborations with mainland Chinese labs and industry giants. This initiative aims to transform Hong Kong into a global tech hub and a superconnector linking China with the world's technological landscape. The emphasis on systematic cross-border cooperation is a response to the historic ad hoc nature of collaborations, with the goal of translating cutting-edge research into commercial and industrial success. By leveraging the city's top universities, which have recently achieved impressive global rankings, Hong Kong is positioning itself to participate more actively in China's ambitious 2035 scientific and technological leadership plan, focusing on areas such as AI, semiconductors, and biotech, and thereby overcoming its previous market limitations. Australian Broadcasting Corporation discusses the deeply ingrained culture of homophobia within Australian football, marked by recent milestones such as Mitch Brown's public acknowledgement of his bisexual identity. Brown's coming out is celebrated as a historic first for an active or former male AFL player, yet it exposes the sport's persistent issues. Experts and advocates argue that homophobia is not just isolated incidents but a deeply embedded aspect of the league's hypermasculine environment, with language and behaviors normalized over years, often used as rights of belonging. Despite efforts like the 2014 anti-homophobia framework and the introduction of educational modules, progress remains slow, and incidents of homophobic slurs continue to surface, revealing a culture resistant to change. Brown's experience, along with voices from grassroots players and supporters, underscores the need for systemic cultural shifts from the ground up, emphasizing that true inclusion requires more than policy. It demands a fundamental transformation of the sport's social fabric, especially at the local club level. The Associated Press reports on Georgia Governor Brian Kemp's endorsement of outsider candidate Derek Dooley in the 2026 U.S. Senate race, emphasizing the strategic importance of unseating Democratic incumbent Jon Ossoff. Kemp's backing, rooted in Dooley's outsider status and his critique of Ossoff's record, reflects the broader Republican effort to rally behind a candidate capable of energizing the base, despite Dooley's limited political experience and past voting record. The race is complicated by the lack of a clear endorsement from former President Trump, with other GOP contenders questioning Dooley's appeal to core voters, especially Trump supporters. Kemp's active involvement, including campaign support and discussions with Trump, illustrates the high stakes of this contest, which hinges on candidate authenticity and alignment with Trump's agenda. The political landscape remains volatile, with critics warning that nominating a candidate with minimal political ties and a questionable voting history could undermine the GOP's chances, making this race a pivotal battleground for Georgia's future Senate control. Thank you for tuning in. The content above showcases the latest briefing reports and analytical synopses, thoughtfully curated by the 6Do team. These insights stem from a wide array of reputable media outlets, think tanks, government sources, and specialized experts worldwide. We encourage you to explore these sources for a comprehensive perspective. Keep in mind that while the content may not always align with the official standpoint of 6Do Brief, it's not meant to be taken as absolute directives for decision-making. Comprising seasoned media professionals, learned scholars, and accomplished scientists, the 6Do team embodies a trailblazing, fully independent media entity. To customize 6Do Brief to meet your professional needs, you have the option to subscribe to a diverse array of briefings on our website, 6dobrief.com. Regardless of your location, you can conveniently receive 6Do Brief via email.
News breaks, buzz the ground, stories spin, walls come down, voices merge in the sound, faces mix in the crowd. Broadcasters paint the scene, world events on our screen, every link a different theme, words collide in the stream. 6 degrees connect the dots, background stories more than us. The voices rise aloud, truth unveils in every spot. Cultures clash across the globe, spin the threads in a strobe. Every story wears a robe, truth and lies in their code. Journalists dig real deep, secrets out, they don't sleep.